Welcome to Out of Home Insider, the first podcast for media and marketing executives that connects how offline attention drives conversion. My name is Tim Rowe, and for the past 4 years, I've been interviewing guests about their unique insights in bridging this misunderstood and undervalued opportunity for brands to create alchemy in the real world. Today's guest is Brooke Ermogenis, and if you're here to learn about programmatic digital out of home, then you're in the right place. The first episode with Brooke is currently the most listened to episode ever, and she's back for part 2 with a full state-of-the-state update on programmatic trends, DOOH.io, the first global platform for educating marketers and publishers on programmatic digital. And we talk about trends, media integration, and how unified education is arguably more important than unified impression counting, and how the power of real-time broadcast could be the key to unlocking more growth for offline media at large. So that's the big idea I'd like you to consider during this conversation. How can you double down on what makes you different to stand out in a crowded marketplace? When we're growing up, we're showered with praise for being our unique selves. Yet in business, so many fall into the trap of trying to be like someone or something else, when the actual opportunity is to lean all the way in to what makes you different and to find problems that you, your product or service can solve, because it's never the what, it's always the who. So, without further ado, let's go.
Welcome everybody to the Out of Home Insider Show, a podcast like no other, hosted by the one and only Tim Rowe. Get ready to have some knowledge dropped on you and to be entertained, because nothing's more valuable than food for your brain. So sit back, relax, we're about to dive in as the best industry podcast is about to begin.
Brooke, welcome back. It's always exciting to have a follow-up conversation, a part 2, and especially with yourself. I don't know if you know this. I might have shared it last time we connected, but the episode we recorded together when you were still living on the boat is the most downloaded episode ever. So to the most downloaded episode ever guest, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And last time we talked, you were living on a boat with your husband, traveling around the world. I think it was in the midst of COVID. You've since landed. You're planting roots.
Yes. We kind of got over the overcompensation for the COVID lockdowns and did that for 2 years, and it was great. And now kind of settled on land again, which is a nice change, I have to say.
Excellent. Well, we prepared a few questions here specifically around programmatic. It's such a hot topic and everyone wants more information. It means so many different things to so many people. It can change definition by region. And so there's a lot here. We're going to unpack some of that. But the first thing that I'd love to get your thoughts on, with programmatic moving as fast as it is, kind of seems like there's a disconnect between maybe out-of-home specialist agencies, programmatic buying teams, and media companies. That's a lot, and it's hard to navigate, which is part of the challenge you're trying to solve through education and enablement, creating a unified source of truth of how we all learn and think about these things. But why specifically, why should programmatic digital out of home be on the menu for brands? As we're closing out 2023, we're getting ready to head into 2024. Why should programmatic digital out of home be a consideration, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, out-of-home advertising is now, as we know, like the fastest growing media in the world. It's even overtaken social media now. And I think that growth can really be attributed to 2 different things. One being the digitization and sort of consolidation of out-of-home inventory. A lot more sort of moving from static over to digital, and a lot more is being consolidated within single platforms. And then, of course, programmatic DOOH as well, because it's allowing a much wider range of buyers to include digital out-of-home in their broadcast media strategy. And that's obviously bringing with it new budgets compared to what out-of-home would have had before. So if companies want to keep up with the growth in market, then programmatic DOOH is going to be an essential part of the equation. And that goes to publishers, buyers, and all the tech players in between. It's not just the additional budgets that the industry is going to benefit from. Programmatic DOOH obviously allows for more efficient planning in every sense of the word, streamlining resources needed from both a time and budget perspective to execute, targeted, contextual, dynamic campaigns, much easier than ever before. With the other benefit, of course, of seamless integration of a more sort of advanced creative applications as well. The most exciting thing about programmatic, I think, moving forward is that the planning and buying process is just the tip of the iceberg really as to what we're going to be capable of. There's going to be a very interesting conversation coming up around the evolution of, in terms of content network structures, and the cross-pollination of content between out-of-home and other digital mediums as well. Not to mention all the new out-of-home networks that are going to be coming in. People are setting up more sort of place-based media that are more sort of niche and contextual. And all of that's facilitated by Programmatic DOOH because of the ease with which it integrates with the rest of out-of-home and with other digital mediums as well. So it's I think what we're seeing now in Programmatic DOOH is really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of, yes, it's easier to plan and buy campaigns and that sort of thing, but I think it's going to lead to a sort of whole evolution of out-of-home as a sector as well.
Let's maybe double click into that specifically, because I think that's a great point in that the targeting, the planning, it's really reached parity. Everyone has about the same type of resources, and that can be applied to obviously digital out of home, traditional static out of home, alternative media formats, even some of the wrapped car, moving ad type formats that are using some of this data and targeting. But what does it look like from a media integration standpoint when you talk about that? What's possible in a future state like you just described?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because, I mean, out of home is sort of the only medium at the moment that has ads as its foundation. Like that's the offering is ads. And everywhere else, it's, it's content with ads sort of, scattered out between. And that's how they're sort of monetizing it. But out of home is really just ads with, a little bit of content thrown in terms of news and that sort of stuff. So it's this underutilized platform for content. And when you look at other digital mediums, like the social medias of the world, they can really be using out of home to make their content more contextual, sort of in the real world, like take it off the screen and put it into the real world as well. Travel influencers putting up on screens in hotels and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Just like sort of a cross pollination between what's possible on social media and what's possible in out of home. It's a new sort of format for them, but at the end of the day, it's just contextualizing what they're already offering, just in a sort of more real world way. So I think the content side of things is going to continue to evolve a lot in out of home because at the moment, I mean, it's just an ad format, which when you think about it is actually quite odd when you compare it to other digital mediums.
It's a really great point.
Mm.
Right. When you start to think about how can I integrate the use of this canvas, this real world digital screen in a hotel room or a painted wallscape downtown, whatever it is, how am I planning my media strategy around all of those elements? It seems fragmented and fractured and hard. Do you see that reintegration happening within agencies? Is it different between big holdcos versus maybe a local regional agency? How do you think that comes together? Like the team element, the teams that are individually executing all these things, seems like they need to be in the same room. Does that happen?
I mean, for sure. It does on one level, but I think we're going to see as the sort of tech continues to progress and the kind of traditional loop structures of digital out of home is challenged. We're going to get to the point where it's possible for people within proximity to any screen to be able to put up their own content like then and there. So it's not necessarily reliant on, big agencies making a big decision and putting out a big campaign. It can literally happen in the moment, and people can be promoting themselves, their businesses. It can happen on a much more sort of micro, individual level as well as a huge campaign level. And I think the more that starts happening, the more the agencies are going to sort of, wake up a bit to what the possibilities are. And I think we'll start to see how people approach these big campaigns sort of adapt, accordingly.
And I think that really represents kind of one of the beachheads that we need to take, because when we can get the consumer mindset thinking about how do I as an influencer, how do I take advantage of this real-time broadcast element for my own interest, now that consumer behavior is driving broader marketing adoption. We've seen that obviously Facebook and Google, right? The things that we use every day, the things that we are using ourselves end up being the things that we spend a lot of money advertising on Amazon. Do you think that holds true? Is that?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's not contingent on having a huge big broadcast campaign for a huge launch of something or other. It's going to get a lot more personalized. I mean, akin to, I suppose, what already happens online, where, you're served a personalized ad thanks to cookies and whatever. It'll be similar to that, but not obviously in the same way, given its cookieless environment. But it will just become more personalized and more targeted slowly, while also kind of obeying the laws of privacy and data restrictions and that sort of thing. But it's just a really interesting new kind of canvas, and I think a lot of, now that Programmatic DOOH is bringing all of the other digital mediums kind of closer towards using out of home, there's going to be a lot more kind of thought between how mediums can really complement each other, and not just in the sense like have this campaign, this campaign, this campaign, and it can work together, but actually utilizing the other mediums for the other medium's advantage, if that makes sense. So it's going to be a very interesting few years, I think.
It's the funniest use of mediums using other mediums. I always see it on a TV commercial. Companies love to use out of home in their TV commercials. You ever notice that? Like, I don't know. I always AT&T. Like, I've seen a lot of cable companies do it. It's interesting. It's really interesting to think about the way that out of home gets used in the rest of the marketing mix.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something that I think is a sticking point for a lot of folks is measurement. And measurement seems to mean different things to different people. Some conversations, measurement means how do we count impressions? In other conversations, specifically with brands and marketers, measurement means, did this make me money? Can I see the impact to my bottom line? Is there a feedback loop that I can optimize to? Where does measurement stand in this conversation?
It's the eternal question for out of home, isn't it? But I mean, out of home has sort of always suffered at the peril of, they say like the comparison is the thief of joy. It's kind of like that with measurement when it comes to out of home, because they're always comparing it to other mediums and saying, well, here it's, one impression, one click, one buy. Why can't it be that simple? But it's just a completely different medium, so we have to think of it differently. So I find that, like ROI, for example, it's quite a restrictive term that's been born of the sort of singular reporting and results of other digital mediums. And the benefits of out-of-home advertising go far beyond the sort of view, click, purchase mentality of online. And while, yes, there are some instances where, you can calculate, increased footfall or in-store sales through POS data or mobile tracking or, direct sales aren't always the KPIs for an out-of-home campaign. So, I mean, for instance, out of home is like the king of brand awareness, right? So, provides that mass reach and an incredible creative canvas for brands to utilize. But ROI is not the metric needed to validate the success of an awareness campaign. So why is this the metric that, marketers are still so stuck on? So, true ROI, for example, is not always going to be a straight line between, money spent to money gained in out of home. So there needs to be a consideration for a much more sort of holistic view on the impact of out of home as a medium. Otherwise, marketers are going to forgo the biggest advantages of the medium by chasing the sort of wrong, type of success data. And the same goes for impressions as well. Just because you have 20 million impressions, what does that actually mean for a campaign and its success? It's a moving yardstick for everyone that you do. So I'm not sure why it's a sort of sticking point that everyone's so obsessed with trying to measure all the time.
Well, that is sound perspective, and I think it's a piece of the talk track that we all need to adopt, and that education, the enablement of a brand in understanding it's not linear. It's going to show up in lots of different ways. It's going to bring down your cost per click. Your click-through rates are going to go up, right? It's not just put up a billboard and then see this line item in your reporting where billboard created XYZ return. There's some platforms that allow you to see, hey, which formats are working hardest in this. But at the end of the day, does this make sense for me? Is it in front of the audience? Did it really the most important part? Did I get the creative right? Like, if your creative stinks,
this to me, I don't know how this is not what everyone's most obsessed with, because I mean, they're like, oh, how do we measure every tiny, impression and whatever? And most of them, creative is like an afterthought for most campaigns. It's like, well, does it matter? Because even if you have 20 million impressions, no one's getting the point because you forgot to put your logo on there. You know what I mean? It's like creative should be king, and then the story tells itself. You know what I mean? And not to mention the fact that out of home, I mean, you'll find that out of home is the only medium where it's publish on other mediums as news, as content, being like, did you see this amazing install for, this 3D billboard and wherever? There's a whole narrative that can be done. You can only buy one billboard and have an amazing creative, and it could go completely viral online. You know what I mean? So like the execution of the creative is everything, and the story you're trying to tell is everything. And yet people are just like, well, how do I count my impressions? It's like, well, let's prioritize first, shall we? And get, you know, there's some other metrics that
Amen.
may be more important
Hallelujah.
than. It's crazy.
Send this
It's wild to
episode
me.
to a creative in your life. Please. Thank you, creative. Thank your creative director today. Let's do more to celebrate the creatives, the real estate people that give us places to put our ads up. Yeah, we get
True.
lost in some of the
And the
minutia.
sad thing is, the creatives, I think
But
they would love to have more
talk
fun
about-
with it, but they get like last minute sort of, oh, we've got a campaign going live in 2 weeks. Give us something.
Oh,
They're like,
yeah.
but we could do. Oh, I'm sure
need
it's
a
equally
design
as frustrating
tomorrow.
for every sign.
Like-
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, that's another episode.
Right, I need a design tomorrow, and I don't have a creative brief. Sorry if I was stumbling over you there.
It sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration around that part of the equation. But we led with education and enablement. You launched DOOHX a few years ago. It's grown a ton. I've seen lots of folks posting their certifications and sharing the things that they've learned about. How has the platform evolved? What's next? What's coming? Kind of give folks that maybe aren't familiar yet with the platform a little bit of 101.
Yeah, so we launched almost 2 years ago now. The idea was to create sort of accessible, centralized, global standard of education that people can access from wherever they are, whenever they want. That allows them to like understand the foundations of out of home and programmatic digital out of home. So we have our 2 101 courses, which is PDO 101 and Digital Out of Home 101. We've got a PDO Advanced course. We've got a Programmatic DOOH for buyers specifically, and Programmatic DOOH for publishers, which will be coming out in the next month as well. And we felt like the certifications are really good for laying the foundations. They're great for sort of onboarding new staff, for training internally, for anyone that's new to the industry or new to types of, parts of the industry. It's a great way to sort of get the foundational knowledge settled. And that's what we've seen from markets all over the world in the past few years, which has been amazing. But now I think the industry is sort of evolving and changing at such a rapid rate. And there's so many exciting things to be talking about that a certification once every, sort of 6 months is really not enough to keep up with the demand for knowledge. So we're sort of shifting a bit, and we're putting out an app in the next couple of weeks, which will be a sort of a community-based subscription model where we'll be releasing short-form content, educational content on a weekly basis rather than every few months. So members will have access to all of the certification courses that we have, plus another sort of 5 certifications worth of content on an annual basis, which will be sort of drip fed on a weekly basis, and people can interact, they can like, they can comment, they can talk to each other. There's a membership directory, so you can get in touch with people from the industry from all over the world. The closest thing we have to this at the moment is sort of LinkedIn, really, but that's, out of home kind of gets lost in the sea of everything else there. But this platform, you can have it on your phone, you can log in and type in, how does a publisher integrate with an SSP for Programmatic DOOH, and a video will pop up and teach you all about it. So it's really just a centralized database that we're going to be building on over the next few years, that will allow anyone, anywhere, anytime to just log in and learn sort of whatever they want. And also a place for us to have the kind of conversations that's going to shape the next phase of the industry. We're going to be talking about, things like the influence of AI over the next few years, and even going back to static out of home for a while to see how the automation has sort of taken a hold there and what the changes are. So just a place where, that we can have this kind of global conversation, because it's so interesting to me seeing how, like you were saying at the beginning, every different market is at a different phase with Programmatic DOOH, which is out of home in general. So I think opening those lines of communication, as well as having some content that's in local languages for, the Latin American market, the Asian market, it's just going to consolidate that conversation, sort of, I think, hopefully push us all forward at a more sort of, level base than we had before.
Sounds like the place to be. I'll be there for sure. I love the social element and being able to create a dialogue, a global dialogue that's real time and about the same types of content.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crossed probably anyone's mind here in the States how load shedding in some countries is impacting, programmatic even being available. And what the heck does that all mean? So to understand, I think, what other folks are going through and how we're all solving problems, that kind of cross-pollination like you described, that's an exciting advancement. So when will that all be online? When can folks look forward to that?
So we're launching on the 12th of September, the new app. So people will be able to sign up. Actually, as of next week, they'll be able to sign up, pre-sign up before we go live. All of our existing students will get access anyway. They'll get a free trial to log into the new platform to see what it's all about. And we'll start releasing content from day one. So it's very exciting times for us. It's going to be interesting.
That'll be the day this episode comes out. So if you're listening to this, that's today. September 12th is today. You don't even need to look down. If you're listening to this on the day that it's coming out, if you're hearing it after that, then you're behind. So you need to get there. Where do folks go if they want to connect with you, learn more about everything that we talked about? Where are the best places, given the Latin long?
So they can contact me directly, Brooke at dooh.io. The website's going to be sort of relaunching next week with all the information about the new platform, all about the membership, what's included, the sort of content plan that we're putting together so you know what to expect. And then the app will be available on both Apple and Android as of the 12th of September.
Excellent. We'll link to all that to make it really convenient for everybody. Brooke, I can't thank you enough for being back for a second time.
Thank you.
We'll be looking forward to part 3.
Lovely. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. If you found this to be helpful, please share it with somebody who could benefit. As always, make sure to smash that subscribe button. And wherever you're listening, leave the podcast review. That's how you help us grow. See y'all next time.
Quarter century, I finally came to my senses. I finally got my hand up on the tinted Benz, kid. I see the world clear through my tinted lenses. With the dream and the drive, the possibilities endless. Now print that, send this all the way to Tokyo. Take a trip down south, down to Mexico. Next stop, Shanghai, the world-class trade show. First class all the way, cause that's how we roll. Yeah, call us the rock star businessman. Rockin' shows, we handle business, man. We got our own future in the palm of our hands, cause divided we fall and together we stand.